Today, I'm talking to Christa Frosch, a founding agent of Sotheby's International Realty Canada, with real estate sales experience in British Columbia, Canada, Germany, and expanding. For more than 15 years, Christa has been selling residential properties in downtown Vancouver, West Vancouver, and the Oakenoggen. In all of these years, it was during the Great Recession that she discovered and created the biggest breakthrough of her career, when she transformed into being one of a handful of true vineyard specialists in the world and a founder of the Sotheby's International Realty Vineyard Division. Today, we talk about the biggest breakthrough opportunities, that they are usually right under your nose. Thanks for listening to the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. This podcast was created for real estate agents across the country to come together, sharing ideas to take your, their, and our business to the next level. Okay. I'm kind of deciding whether I need to keep saying, hi, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast, because then it gets awkward. But we're just going to start talking. But before I do that, It is the Jere Metcalf Podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. Today, Christa, we are recording. You're on the show with us, Christa Frosch, with Canada Sotheby's International Realty of Vancouver. But right now, you're in Florida. You've had your license since 2004. Is that right?
Yes,
that's right. The two highest priced, most gorgeous listings in Canada at the moment. You founded the winery division for Sotheby's International Realty. You are an entrepreneur like you've never seen. You're going to have so much exciting insight. I'm going to give y'all just that little touch of Christa and who she is and what she's about. Christa, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show with you today.
It's a pleasure to have you. And everybody, she has a special background just for me. That's what she said.
Oh, yes, I do. Actually, that's true.
And you want to tell, the background's not important, but you want to share a little bit with us because she's in Florida right now, everybody.
I'm in Florida. I'm staying at a special little boutique hotel, and they had this private room that had these lovely images, and I thought they would be appropriate for a Sotheby's podcast with you.
Exactly. Yeah. It's actually the Jere Metcalf Podcast, but being that we're both with Sotheby's, and we've got a lot of Sotheby's guests on the show, it certainly makes sense. So, excuse me. Tell us, first of all, we're going to just start with how and why did you get in the business?
Well, my father was a developer, and we always had beautiful architectural homes, and he built beautiful things. And it was something that inspired me to build something that would be there for generations to come, and that you could create through architecture, space and design and light and flow of buildings that really inspired me to get into the business. And then it just happened that I'm good at sales and I enjoy people. So that was a natural fit to look at doing sales and promoting of properties. And Sotheby's, I was in Germany working for a commercial company that did very high-end specialty boutique projects, and learned a lot about the business and just the whole structure, negotiation, all of that. And then I decided to move back to Canada, and Sotheby's started in 2005 in the Canadian market, and I was asked to join the team. Basically, I was a pioneer for Sotheby's Canada. And since then, it's been a really wonderful journey, and met a lot of very interesting people, worked on many interesting properties and projects, and really just developed just a great business.
Wow. So 2005, you got in the business. When you got in the business, clearly you had a background idea of what the business is like. To break in, how did you get your first deal? Did it unfold naturally, or did you, what did that look like?
So in 2004, when I got licensed, I worked for a company I wanted to specialize in very high-end luxury homes, waterfront in particular. And so I interviewed with 4 companies that were specialists in the high-end market. And this gentleman interviewed, and we interviewed again, and then he ended up taking me on as one of his I would say students, or I would say as apprentice assistant. And one day he just called me and he said, I need you to go do this open house for me. You need to come and meet with me and sign your papers. So I started with my first open house that I did for him. I remember in West Vancouver, it's a really nice area. At that time, that house was probably 4 million, and it was my first open house weekend. And that was a great experience. And for the first year, the things that I learned from his name is Alan Mark Angel, and he founded Angel Hassman, and he's been in the business for probably 40 years now. He's still not retired. The things that you need to always know is price per square foot, what's in the area, what's sold, what's for sale, and just really be on top of what the market is and what the values are in the area. And then the second thing that I learned from him is to keep in touch with your clients, because we get so busy in our new business and in the direction of what we're doing in a specific season or year. It's really important to keep in touch on a regular basis, not too often, but enough that you're in your past client's mind when they're thinking about buying something or selling something, or they need to refer someone. I think that's a very big thing that I learned over being in the business for, well, I guess it's 16 years now. So, yeah.
What do you think? It's not like that's very complicated, and everybody knows if I keep in touch with people and know my market, you've got to keep in touch, but there's got to be some competence, or the keeping in touch could be counterproductive. Why is it so hard to be successful in this business? Why is it that 95% of people don't make it when it's really not that complicated?
Yeah, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You need to actually watch and study and just research what people that are in the top 5% of the business in North America, what they're doing, and pretty much do the same thing. And if you continually do the same thing, you will have great results. And it does take, when you first start your business, it takes 2 to 3 years to really get into the business. And even if you're coming in a hot market, if you come in and it's a strong market, you still have to do your follow-up. You have to have your knowledge. I would say if you're just getting into the business, you should have a mentor that takes you for at least 1 year to take you through everything, so that you learn from them, and from a contract law point of view, from just a negotiating point of view, due diligence point of view, disclosure, like all of those things. I think really a mentorship program is very important. And then once you become established, I think it's also important to have a good team around you, because, for example, I'm good at negotiating, or I'm good at bringing the clients together to have a deal happen where it's harmonious for both sides. But I'm not a photographer. I'm not good at writing stories. I know what I would like to have as my end result vision for whatever property I'm working on, but that's not my specialty. So I think it's really important to understand what your strengths are, and then find other people that have the other strengths that you need to complement your team, so that you can really provide a high level of service for your client. And then you will have repeat business, and you will also build other relationships because of that.
So I'm going to give you 2 questions at once, because I want you to choose which one to answer first, and then we'll hit on the other one. One question is, when you're sometimes we don't know our own strengths and weaknesses. How do we get honest with ourselves? How do we find the right people? I find that is one of the biggest challenges of agents, is finding the right people and setting those people up for success, determining, is it me not setting them up for success, or is it they're not the right people? The other question is kind of on the other side. So you choose which one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think made you successful specifically, and what gives you your cutting edge?
Okay.
Which one do
So
we answer first?
I think I'm going to answer the second one first.
Okay.
Because when you get into business, you have no idea actually about anything. And you're learning and navigating at a very quick speed all at the same time.
So we're answering what makes you special first, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
keep
so.
going.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So what I realized I had a lot of successes and I had failures because I wasn't able to implement things that I needed to in a way that I could sustain. So I had like great success, and then the market changes. I'm going to tell you about later in 2008 in the States when the market changed. And so and there's a natural cycle of the business that every 10 years goes like this. But when you're in the business and you're just going up like this, you haven't experienced this yet. And most people, if they've been in the business for 20 years, they've had already 2 of those cycles. And when you get in the business and you're having great success, you always have to plan for the years where the markets are not good. And then you have to really quickly change to adapt to, if it's a buyer's market, a seller's market, a high market, a low market, you have to be really adaptable. And I think that that's something that is one of my strengths, is that I'm okay with adapting and really focusing in on what's going on. So for example, in 2008, we just had this big, great thing with Sotheby's coming into the Canadian market. Houses were at their all-time high. Everyone was buying. You know, it was easy. It was easier to get. It was easier to get business, and even from a selling point of view, it was a very good market. And then after 2008, it was having to reinvent what the business was and who the client was.
We'll remind everybody, 2006 in the States was the peak. Yes. 2007, we were in a recession, but most of us didn't believe it or know it. In 2008, it was bad. 2009, it was really bad. Like, is it ever going to be okay again?
Yeah.
So
that's where we were. And things that were 6 million were 3 million. Properties that were 7 million because of the banks for selling for 2 million. Of course, it was very sad because clients that had these assets that the bank had loaned on were calling the loans, and people were selling. I mean, it was a really good buyer's market, but from a seller's point of view, it was absolutely devastating. So just dealing with clients and managing expectations on that level, but also from a cash flow point of view, when you're used to selling on a regular basis at this price point, and now you have to sell this many houses at this price point, you have to adapt. And so that's what we did. And Maria Peters, who works with me at Sotheby's as well, she asked me to come to the Oakenoggen, which is an area where the wineries, we have about 200 wineries in this part of Canada, and it's a beautiful area. And we went to a winery, we were trying the wine, and then I was thinking to myself, you know, in Europe, I have many contacts, and land is a safe place to invest money. And then I'm thinking, we have this land, we have these wineries, I know the wine business. And so we just created the Vineyard collection. And it happened that the year that I went to New York and we launched the Vineyard collection, and then Sotheby's did the retail of the wine division, so you can do your own wine portfolios for your house and your cellars and sell your cellars and all of those things. So there is a real synergy around that. And that made me a vineyard specialist for Sotheby's, but also for Canada. And I started to sell wineries on a private level, because a lot of wineries, if they're good brands, they don't want to have public knowledge of their sale until everything's done, because of employees, because of just brand sensitivity, all of those kind of things. So then, so that became a great success and just a really interesting business.
We're going to ask about the people and leveraging. We're not going to forget about that.
Okay.
But this is just want everybody to know who heard, as we're listening to both questions, but this is interesting. So as an outsider,
Mhm.
We're in the Great Recession. People are running out of money. And most people are like, let's go do short sales. You, on the other hand, went the other direction and said, let's go sell some really expensive properties, vineyards, and let's do it in a way that nobody knows about it, but still get it done. Like,
Uh-huh.
how did that happen? And how did you even think it was going to work?
I don't know. I just trusted my intuition, I suppose, on that one. And
Yeah.
I
Let's
had
sell more expensive properties without public marketing. In the middle of the Great Recession. That's a good idea, but it worked.
it worked. It worked. That's been a really fun business, and we get to try lots of great wine. I mean, that's a really interesting business from a family legacy point of view or commercial point of view. The wine business, I mean, it's everywhere in the world, and it's because of the internet, because of the internet, really. The wine business, especially in France and let's say France and Italy, you know, the methods of wine used to be very private within families or, you know, companies. And now, because of internet and how you can go on and Google anything and learn anything, the wine business has become very small. And so there's a lot of families that are invested globally in the wine business, but then there's also a lot of personal people that they've had their first career and they've made money, they've done well, and they decide that they want to do a second chapter, and they end up buying a winery and having the winery and selling the winery, or having a family member take it over, because land is really the biggest component of the winery, because it's the biggest price tag of the
Yeah.
purchase.
So how did you, was there just a market for wineries and you discovered that, or what really made that?
It's interesting
Yeah.
because in California and Napa, because your that market is an older market, like everything is, let's say, 100 years, like after Prohibition, you had the wineries that came, and there was this cycle of, you know, people came in, built these beautiful wineries, then things happened, and so you've had a longer history with wine business in America and Canada, because we're only 100 years old. I would say what really happened is we're only 50 years in the wine business. So that was like first generation of people that were pioneering and basically planting vineyards and starting wineries that came from Europe or came from wherever they came from. And then their children got involved, and then the next generation, either they get involved or they don't. So then it's
Yeah.
like this, it was the first cycle of the original people that had started the wine business retiring. And so that was it was just a timing thing. It wasn't, as I said, it just happened that the market changed, and then I'm like, land is a safe place to invest. And it just happened that synergy happened, because I don't think I could have planned that. It was just something that from a timing point of view just happened naturally.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, the fact that you were open to it, and when it happened, I think a lot of times opportunities come our way and we think they sound so crazy. We pass on them and then look back and say, why didn't I do that? In your case, the opportunity came your way and it worked out. Was it you didn't have anything else to do? I mean, not to be, but really, or was it was it a passion thing?
I
Was
think
it?
a passion.
Yeah.
I think on my father's side in Germany have had a winery in our family since the 1800s. So I like legacy. I like tradition. I love that things can be passed along in tradition and story. And I think that that was number one. Number two, I have a liquor agency in Canada, which I brought in from France when I came back from
Oh,
Germany. And so I
wow.
understand the whole liquor laws and taxation and just distribution and marketing. And it's funny how the liquor business and the wine business really complement real estate, because most people at a certain level love food, they love architecture, they love wine, and it's just a beautiful combination of everything combining together.
So there are a few things I want to point out to everybody. First of all, what you were talking about is so specialized yet with such a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
There's a coach named Fabienne Fredrickson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write her name down to make sure our podcast manager tags her.
Okay.
But Fabienne always says, when you're doing business, think about what can I do that no one else can.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm like, how many people can really do what you just described?
It's very niche and it's very special. And there's different components of it, because you have to also think about when someone, like, everyone has a different vision of what their branding is going to be, or like you want to focus on a red, but what varietals do you want to plant? Like, what is best for that land or that terroir? And then you have to look at all those things. And then so you have the wine component, you have Mother Nature and farming basically component, and then you have branding and marketing and sales distribution. So you have like all these different things that somebody has envisioned and put into play, and then you have to find someone that actually fits with that philosophy and that wine business, because every single winery that I've worked on is completely different. Not one is the same.
So in marketing a winery, and everybody, this is obviously if you're interested in wineries, but also in thinking about marketing anything, especially properties, and this is such a like almost exaggerated example, because I think about this for houses, but this is so much more relevant. And you laugh, but it's true. You're probably just laughing at my southern accent being in Canada.
I know it does. It does. I know it's probably it is. I mean, it is marketing though. It really is sales and marketing.
Well, but I'm serious because you talked earlier about you don't publicly market it, but actually what you're describing to me is that would be counterproductive.
You have to find the buyer. So we have the vineyardcollection.ca. And so people find us on that. And then with Sotheby's, we have a wine division tab and we have a vineyard division tab, but there are very few companies in the world that specialize in selling wineries. So we probably have within Sotheby's 30 agents in Italy, France, Australia, New Zealand,
That's not very many.
Africa. No, that's what I'm saying. We have one in South America. We have a few in America, and then I think maybe 2 in Canada. So it's very, very, very specialized. And so you really have to learn a lot about the business.
Well, learn about the business, learn about the vineyards you're selling, the way we learn about houses we're selling, and learn about the questions I think you would ask, and then tell me, what are the questions you ask yourself? Like, who is the buyer? How many are there? They're not many.
It's like a haystack, and then there's one little needle in there. And so my job is to find the best buyer for that specific winery.
How do you do that?
I work with different lawyers, accountants. I work with, there's different buyers that have purchased other wineries in different areas. So for example, if somebody owns a winery in California, they may be looking at having a winery in Canada, or someone from South America, for example, that wants to invest in our North American market, or someone from France that has already invested in South America or America.
So you're not pulling out the yellow pages and looking up attorneys.
No.
Just saying. Right?
No.
You're not going to Google
reach. It's a broad reach.
So that goes that you're developing relationships with these people.
Yes.
Talking about developing relationships, you've got developing relationships personally with people, and some of that comes from heritage, your family, your experience, which I would say to our listeners, and whatever you're doing, what are those things? What can I do that no one else can? And then you've got the PR component. You are quite the PR person. So bringing to us, you're clearly already set up for success with the connections, but I always say, just because somebody looks like they're quote, born with a silver spoon, or looks like they all had it handed to them. No one did, because whatever you're set up with, there's so many people in the world, in the grand scheme of things, that have so much opportunity no matter what their position is. It's whatever you're born into, knowing how to leverage that opportunity. PR, when we talked before the interview, was a little bit of that. So tell us a little bit about the relationships, the PR, how you leverage those things in a way that are productive, in bringing you these results that you've gotten in your success.
So when I first started with Sotheby's in 2005, I mean, we had basic marketing, but really no, people knew of the auction house, but in Canada, nobody knew that Sotheby's was in real estate. And so it took at least 3 to 5 years to really develop that. And I must say, project sales at the time, luxury project sales at the time, were a big thing, because that was, you know, how that cycle of this goes as well. And you have that in the States here too, where, you know, luxury condos become a big thing, and then marketing happens with that. So there was a division with Canada that did that, the marketing of the projects. But I must say that in my first years, I spent a lot of money on marketing properties, doing all of the listing presentations, all of those kind of things, and paid ad. I even did a magazine. Like I had a magazine published. It was quite a nice publication.
Wow,
with
your own magazine?
We had our own magazine called the
Wow.
Oakenoggen Collection. Yeah, we did that. And it was a lot of work.
Wait, what was the name of the magazine?
It was called Oakenoggen Collection.
Okay.
Oakenoggen Collection. Oakenoggen is Okanaggan, Oakenoggen Collection magazine. And we did that, and we had a lot of editorial, and then we did art, food, wine, cars, real estate. We had
That's another job.
I know, it was a lot of work.
Where do you find the time? You've got the liquor license from France to, I can't keep up with, by the way, remember everybody, when we got in the interview, she mentioned Chicago, Hong Kong. We haven't even gone there yet. Then there was something about Germany. like the planet to you is our hometown. To the rest, like what my hometown is to me, or Atlanta. Atlanta's not my hometown, but what Atlanta is to me is like the whole globe to you. It's like insane. So I'm interrupting maybe, but they just want to make sure everybody knows who we're talking to. Okay, so you've got a magazine, and you're selling properties.
We did a magazine, and I was going to go back to the marketing slide.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, we were doing paid placement, strategic, for the homes we were working on, and I would say that the average home was around 3 to 5 million.
Okay.
2 million, I would say, is kind of not entry level, but it was at the time that would be like the $2 million homes would sell very.
Now, this was before.
This was 2005 to 2000.
So this was pre-vineyard.
This was Oakenoggen Collection.
Yes.
That I did under Sotheby's.
Okay.
And then the market changed. But what I realized, and this is something I think is very valuable, is that I then found the PR person that was representing Sotheby's in Canada when we first launched. I befriended her and her family, and I asked her, when I was doing specific homes, first, I always like to name the homes that I've sold, because I think that they all have character and deserve their own name. Secondly, I wanted to create, it didn't matter of the price point, I wanted to create a story around what that house, why that house was built, what the unique things about the house were, visually be able to express that story in a quick manner for someone that is looking through an online or a visual magazine, or because at that time, you know, online was there, but we still did a lot of print and a lot of magazine publication. So
yeah.
Then I hired the PR company, and that really changed my business, because then I was able to be very strategic globally with what the property was. Sorry, turning that off. What the property was and where it was being, where I wanted to have it featured, where I felt that perhaps the buyer was going to be coming from. And so she was very, very good at that. And that really helped a lot. So then after that, I actually stopped doing print and I stopped doing paid. So I'm doing editorial, and I found that to be very useful, and that's worked really well for me. So I think that's one thing that that I can share about that.
Yeah, and you said so you were doing, you had your own magazine.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing a lot of paid advertising,
Mm-hmm.
running your magazine, and then you went from that to just only PR. And what was the difference in results and cost from going from paid advertising to PR campaign?
Mm-hmm. Um, you were able to have the property showcased across the country in a very quick time with the same story, and from a Google analytics that, which I think that people will find interesting. One writer, one editorial writer from one publication, let's say the Globe and Mail, then that would go to the Calgary Herald or the Vancouver Sun. So you did it once and you did it right, and then everyone had the right story, and then it just snowballed from that. So that really, I think, was a turning point in my career. And also from a time efficiency point of view, you were able to tell the right story, have the facts be straight, and then I started to really have a good relationship with the different editors and writers for the different publications. And so whenever they were doing something with a very luxury home, or a piece on a winery, or a specific buyer for a winery, because we had different buyers looking at our market as well, then they would always contact me for those things. So from like TV, newspaper, magazine,
Yeah.
it all kind of worked together very well.
Wow. So, question for you, and this is going to go into people and talent and leveraging, for lack of a better word. I mean, we were laughing about this a minute ago, but you're all over the globe. You've got, not anymore, but you were selling houses and running a magazine. Then you've got this, liquor license, and you understand wineries, and you're starting the winery division of Sotheby's. That was you and your ideas and your, you know, creation, manifestation, but you have to have other people help you
Mm-hmm. I very good. I had
deliver
very
and
good
work at that
people.
kind of level.
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So Maria Peters, who works with me and has worked with me for, I guess, 12 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I've had different people come and go, and I've had a core group of people that have been around me that have been very good. We are very lucky with Sotheby's Canada that we have a national division for our marketing and our PR. And so I'm able to work with our internal team from marketing. We have a very good team that does that for us. And then I work with, I think I touched on it before we started, is to have really good photographers that understand what you're trying to accomplish with a property. They need to understand when the lighting is good on the property. They need to go walk the property in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening to understand the light of the gardens, the light of the property. And then on the inside of the house, you also should be shooting it at different times of the day to capture the best light, because there's certain times of the day that the light really doesn't reflect the home well. And so a good photographer, if you find one that you can work with and understands your communication and the level of what you're looking for, especially for homes that are 30 million or $50 million, you want to make sure that the house is being captured in its best light, and that the story then is being told. And I think that that's something also very special, that you really need people that are very good at those things coming together, because I think when you launch a home in that price point, you have one chance to really share the story with the world in an incredible way. And then you find the buyer in a timely way, which is important from, just doing to get to the sale and to get to the closing for everyone involved.
So, how did you learn how to do this?
Okay, so I'm going to give an example. I just had an idea of an example. So,
oh, great.
There was a property. So a gentleman a corporation from the States contacted me for a property that was in Alberta, which is the province over from where I'm from in Canada, in British Columbia. And they had bought a company, and one of the assets was a very special, very unique property called Falkridge, which is by Banff. It's actually outside of Calgary in a place called Pritis, but it's by Banff. So from a North American point of view, people know Jasper, the Rockies, Banff. It's in that area. And it was something that actually the family Schmed had that holding, and he had built this for, it's around 22 guests. So it had 22 different rooms, and it was 2 different buildings, and it sat on 13 acres. And there was special pieces of art and marble from the Vatican that had been in a special church, and the stories in incredible property are amazing. And how do you put a price on something like that?
Yeah.
And who is a buyer for something like that? And so that, just to give you an example from a time point of view, from the time they contacted me till the time that I actually listed the property and then did the visuals, launched it, was about 1 year. So 1 year of work to make sure that we did it right. And it launched just before Christmas. And I had the Calgary Herald front page of the business section, which, because it was in Alberta and oil and gas, it was the right story, right audience. And I had 3 offers, all over asking, within a week of launching it, and sold
around Christmas.
Around Christmas, because I thought, okay, it's, the chances of somebody wanting to work on this or buy this during Christmas, it's not going to happen. And it was right around Christmas, and it's very snowy in Alberta at that time of the year. And there's 3 different offers that came in, and it sold over asking. And at that time, that was in probably 2009, it sold for $13.1 million. And the
a $13.1 million deal in 2009.
Yeah, and it was
that was the Great Recession, everybody, for those of you who don't know. Most of us do. Okay.
So that was our PR company. We did a really good job to have everything right beforehand. And I think that's another key thing when you're working in a very high level, high priced home. You really have to plan it properly. Or if it's a unique property, what are the things that are unique about it? And how can you tell that story and get it in front of the audience that's going to appreciate that, so that you can sell it? I mean, that's really, that's the
and it's, you're obviously a specialist, but in being a specialist, you obviously aren't, it's not just you, it's the team that you orchestrate for the client.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I assume you communicate that to them.
Of course. Yeah. No, I have 1 or 2 people, but Maria really is, I'm the person that works with the clients. I'm very good at clients enjoy to work with me, and I enjoy to work with them.
Right.
And I have marketing, I have photography, I have contract law, I work with lawyers, I work with accountants. I make sure from a tax point of view, from a family planning point of view, I like to have third party for everything. I think it's really important, especially when you're dealing in very high-end, unique homes or businesses or winery sales.
Yeah.
It's really important from just a liability point of view, but also from a professional point of view, that you have a team of professionals that you can refer. That I always refer 3, I never refer 1. Refer 3, so that the client can really have their assets looked after and make sure that they're making the right decisions.
Right.
Another thing that I've done, which I've been doing during this changeover with COVID and everything that's been happening, is I have established a relationship with BMO Harris, which we have Bank of Montreal in Canada, and then we have BMO Harris in the States, which used to be the Harris Bank, and then they merged with Bank of Montreal. So I've started doing cross-border because a lot of people in Canada own real estate in America, and a lot of people in America own property in Canada. So you need to understand when you're buying properties out of country from a tax point of view, where you're being taxed from your income. Then you also need to understand if you want to pass the property on to the next generation, or like when something happens to you and you want it to stay in your family for generations to come, you need to have that all set up right in the beginning, not later on, because it's a lot of times what has happened in the past, and let's say the last 40 years, if people haven't set it up properly and they had a beach house that they went to in the summertime in the States, and you know, the grandkids came and the families came and all these wonderful memories were created, and then the parents unfortunately pass away and the children want to keep the property. If they don't have the necessary taxes to pay, they end up having to sell the property.
Yeah.
So like all of those kind of things are really important. And so I started working with BMO Harris because first they have private banking, they have private family offices, they do Canadian and American accounts, they do tax, they do residential mortgages, they do commercial development mortgages. So I find them to be very good. And I think when you're working with your clients, you want to be able to provide services that they don't have to go navigate. You can just say, you know, introduce here, introduce here, introduce here. And then it just makes it a nice customer service that, you know, especially if they're not from the area, that they're feeling comfortable and getting into the community and with the right people.
Well, tapping into, well, already having a background in wineries, so you've got clients who own wineries. This private banking is what they do. And then you've got, in being in Canada, obviously easily, people, like you said, Canada, you're buying in the States you're buying in Canada. Probably more often in Canada, you're buying in the States just because that's just the way it goes with the opportunities to move to buy down here and population and whatnot. So you've got like this, it's interesting because somebody might think being in Canada, I would say like the opportunities are where you think the weaknesses are, like the wineries and the recession, like what an opportunity that turned out to be. Or being in Canada, some Americans might say Canada, like there's no people and it's cold and like, how are you going to do business up there? But you tap into the right network. Now you've got the right network of people that are also buying in the States. And it's like every situation, I see you finding what always appears to be the weakness to be a huge strength.
Turn it into a strength.
Turn it into a huge advantage.
Yeah.
And whatever gifts and blessings you have, you're not afraid to appreciate them. And I hate the word leverage, is a better word for it, but captivate or enhance, or, you know, take advantage. What's that?
Enhance.
There's a better one. But right, you just bring it to the next level.
Yeah.
So in doing these things, you have to really be discriminating in who you let in your door and who works with you to work with such specialized properties and clients. How do you find these people? Probably through other people. How do you know when they're right and wrong people? What is your biggest, and we're getting to the end of, we're getting short on time now, but I would just like to know a little bit about, this is such a people business, not just with our clients, but who we bring in. Who and how do you know to bring them in? And how do you know when to let them go? And how do you do it?
Are you talking on a professional level? So different lawyers and things. Well,
different lawyers, your assistants, your people working.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a hit and miss. A lot of times, you know, I've interviewed people. Sometimes things have just happened naturally, where so-and-so introduces so-and-so, and then that just happens nicely like that. But I think you really have to, I don't know who told me this, but somebody's told me this, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but you're to surround yourself with people that are mind-like, that will allow you to perform and develop your skills at the level that you can and keep excelling on that then it's like it's a win-win situation.
Mutual.
if I'm able to support people that are coming into the business, that they were where I was. I didn't know what I was doing. You know, you wing it in the beginning a lot, and then you learn your strengths and weaknesses, and you have to develop. And then finding people that, you know, you can mentor, or they can, you find, I have mentors too that work with me, because some of the structures that I work on, I mean, I don't know everything, so I bring in professionals that know that specific area or whatever. And I think asking for help is a good thing. I think that surrounding yourself with people that are mind-like is very important.
Right.
And I think that being very selective and intuitive with your team, but also giving clear direction is very, very important, because we all speak English, but if we don't articulate what we're trying to achieve in a very clear manner, it's very easy for things not to work out. So I think on a daily basis, and I do this every day, I start my day with my run. By the end of my run, I have my list of tasks that I'm going to do, and I just write them down, and that's what I do during the day.
Your run is like your meditation.
It is my meditation. I love it.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, I think it's really important. Consistency is very important. Yeah, consistency.
So you talk about your team, but it sounds like your team is more of your, you know, whether it's tax specialists, you know, your family offices, private banks, that's your team in your business. And you have an assistant, Maria.
Well, Maria, she's licensed in the business as well, because I think that's important.
Oh, yeah.
You need to have people that are licensed from a liability point of view, that know contract law. You need to have people that know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. When they've got their license and they've learned it, it makes it a lot easier for them to understand their job and what they're doing. So we are going to close out with final 3 questions.
Okay.
You're like, oh, what are those? Everybody does that because I never warned. Number 1, what has been the most powerful tool in your business, or resource might be a better, or practice in your business to attribute to your success now?
I would say understanding what your strengths are and hiring people that complement your strengths. I think that takes you to a whole other level of business. And I mean, we are in marketing and selling of homes and beautiful things, and just surrounding yourself with people that are at that level of what your vision is for your clients as well is important.
Do you realize what a loaded, like usually people say loaded question, that was a loaded answer. So I'm going to ask another question and see if you can answer it in 60 seconds.
Oh,
how do you do that? How do you really know your own weaknesses and strengths and get to that place?
I think you have to be very honest with yourself. I mean, people give you feedback too. So, and I ask for feedback. I'm not scared if I'm absolutely okay with, if I'm not doing something at a level that I can be, and somebody is able to educate me on something, I'm absolutely okay with being the learner. I have no problem with sharing stories, sharing information, sharing ideas. And I think it's good. And this is something that one of my girlfriends that was in the business for a long time, commercial real estate in Germany, I would ask questions. I think asking questions and finding out what the needs are is a really big tool. A lot of people talk and they don't listen. When you go for a listing presentation, for example, people say, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, this is why you should work with me. And actually, when someone's selling their home, it's their biggest asset, but also from an emotional point of view, it's their private space. And for whatever reason, they're having to choose to change that. And I think it's about being sensitive to each client's needs and what is important to them in what's happening. And a lot of people don't slow down to really get into that. And I think that that's a gift that many have. And I think that a lot of people do that naturally, but it's for people that are in the business, especially when you've been in it for a long time, you really enjoy your clients. And like, I love what I do, and I enjoy my clients, and I care about them. I care.
Those are my friends. The only friends I have are clients and realtors. That's it.
I think that's important.
So I have a quote. This is I'm going to post. I may post this on social media. Christa Frosch, slow down and listen. That's your biggest tool. Slow down. That's my best advice from you to me, or your best advice. Slow down and listen. And I wrote something down. I told my team, always, like, every time you make a mistake, find the solution, find the opportunity, and remember, always learn, always grow, and you will always rock it. Or I wrote down, stop learning. When you stop learning, you stop growing, and when you stop growing, you start dying.
Agreed.
Next question, book. Is there a book that you would say, hey, this book or this person has really changed my life if I hadn't had that influence?
So I have 2 books. I actually have 3 books, but I have 2 books that are very, very, since I started this business, they are very, very, I read them every day. And when I do my running in the morning, I say those points every single day. So Miguel Ruh, who wrote the 4 agreements, and then he ended up writing the 5 agreements after he had like a heart attack or something. And then he wrote the 5th book. And the first book that he wrote, the 4 agreements, it's be impeccable with your words, do your best at all times, never assume, don't take it personal. And the last one, which he did with his 5th book, was listen and be skeptical. Because a lot of times we take things personal, or we assume things because we don't ask enough questions. And to be impeccable with our word, I think, is very important. But the last one, which is the 5th one, is the one that I've been really working on, is to listen, be skeptical, and not believe everything you hear or everything you see, but really ask the questions and get to understand. And then the second book, which
that's kind of an important message in our current times, I have to say, but we will not take that any further. Anyway, keep going.
Okay. So after, a few years ago, Maria gave me the book called The 5 Tools. The 5 Tools, and that's 2 gentlemen from LA. One is a psychiatrist. The other one was a lawyer who became, I think he's a psychiatrist, like they work together anyhow. And they had 5 things in their book, which is really good. It's Philip Schultz is one of the gentlemen. I forget the other gentleman's name right now. But the first one is, if you have fear about anything, just go through it. So whatever fear you have, or whatever is the most difficult thing in your day to do it first thing in the morning. That's number 1. Number 2, to have gratitude in everything, even if it's not good, because if it's not, if you have gratitude about something that's not good, you turn it into something that is good. So it's constantly having gratitude for everything in your life, no matter what it is. And then the third one, which I think is big, especially in our world today, is to always be active in love. So in everything that you do, to have love in your heart and to give love, even if people are crabby or they're not happy, or they're just to come to a place of always being in gratitude and in love in everything you do. And then the 4th one is about your mind, and really just disciplining your mind to not take control of things, because the mind is something that can do that, and it's important to keep it in check. And then the last one is, if you think about, if you only had 6 months to live, what would you do with your time, and who would you have around you, and why are they important, or why are you doing the things that you're doing? And I think in particular, even with this time now in 2020 with the COVID and everything, a lot of people have had to reflect on that. But I do that on a daily basis. And then it's very easy to to clear out the stuff and just stay focused on what you want to accomplish and create and be your best at it.
That's great advice. Last question. I'm going to review that for everybody. Well, read the book. Actually, read the book. It was
They're
Five
amazing.
Tools.
I've told.
And Philip Schultz was one of the authors. But do the yucky stuff first. That's my version. Yucky stuff first. Push through the fear. Have gratitude. Always act in love in everything.
Yeah.
Act in love, because that gives empathy as well, by the way. But
Yeah.
keep your mind in check, because that'll really mess things up. That's the biggest one. Or the biggest thing that'll mess things up. And if you had, this is such a great question, and I think the quarantining and COVID-19 situation has helped so many people. But if you had 6 months, what would you do with it? And I'm not going to get to the 5 agreements or 4 agreements, 4 or 5. Those were great too. But the 4 agreements, a lot of us have heard of it. But the 5 tools, I haven't.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay, last question. If there's one thing, and there's been a lot, but if there's one thing that you would say, this is the one thing you have to remember from this conversation, if you have to just forget everything else, what is that one thing to remember?
One thing for everything
To take away from this.
Oh, to take away
Or
from this.
if you say, just know this about our business, but from our conversation, what's the one thing we should?
I would say always keep your feet on the ground, but never hold yourself back from living your dreams, or really knowing that you're deserving or you're good enough to do the things that you really wish to do, in particular if you have the team that supports you. So if you have goals and you have if you want to do well in our business, do well in our business. Like, don't do it half. Like, if you want to, you either have to have both feet in or don't put any feet in, because it's not a business to play around in.
You're right about that.
Very, very serious, and you can do very well, but you really need to have your feet on the ground and have a good team around you.
Great advice. Thank you so much for an awesome interview.
Thank you. It was fun.
It was fun.